Hello, Henry. Do you remember how you got here?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick. Christy, Matt, Ben, I'm Alonzo, and I didn't have enough Dramamine, so I did not go see Hardcore Henry, but these cats did, and they're going to tell you all about it.
Yeah, Hardcore Henry is, well, let me put it this way. If you've ever been watching a video on Twitch of somebody playing a first-person shooter, and you thought, I wonder what this would be like if somebody did it with GoPros at a feature length, this is that film. Take a look.
Henry, they want your technology.
How would you like the new you?
Altitude. The chute! Hold the chute! Hold on, Henry! Henry, fight back! You're capable of more than you think! Henry!
The bad news is there's an army standing between you and your wife. So let's go get her.
Tonight, I'm gonna have myself a real good time. I feel alive. Woo! This is war, baby! 'Cause I'm having a good time, having a good time. Shooting star leaping through the sky like a tiger, defying the laws of gravity. Racing car passing by like Lady Driver. I'm gonna go. There's no stopping me. I'm running through the sky. 200 degrees, that's why they call me Mr. Fahrenheit. I'm traveling at the speed of light. I wanna make a supersonic man out of you.
You gonna lay there,
Don't stop me, don't stop me. Hey.
swallow that blood in your mouth? Or you gonna stand up and go spill theirs?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting for the first, 15, 20 minutes?
I gave it 18 minutes.
The mystery of who this guy is, and he wakes up with no memory, and he's all from his perspective, and he's getting prosthetics attached to his body with this beautiful blonde doctor who says she's his wife, and like, who is he? And why does Sharlto Copley keep showing up with different personalities and costumes and different voices?
Getting killed and keep coming back.
Yeah,
and
the mystery of it is really intriguing for a while. Enough to mitigate like the headache-inducing dizzy factor of it. The three of us, it was not pretty. I don't know whether it's because we're old people or what, but like for a lot of it, Matt's doing this.
Yeah, I had to look.
I'm looking down. Ben, you were like in the fetal position at some points.
Yeah, I was bored, but I was mostly bored.
It's very numbing and very repetitive.
Now, do any of y'all play video games? Because I don't either. But
Matt actually does.
I do, and I have found that as I've gotten older and as the frame rates have increased, it's harder to spend a lot of time playing certain games.
It gives you a headache.
It makes it, depending on the perspective, it gives me a little bit of motion sickness. So some games I have to stop after 30, 40 minutes, like whereas it wasn't always that way. Now, with this particular movie game, look, it hits all of the notes as you'd expect out of something like Hitman, which is not exactly a first-person shooter, but it's a lot of, when writing this movie, they clearly were setting out to write something that has the rhythm of what it feels like to play one of those games, right? It's, you go...
I don't play, and that's incredibly clear, just because if you've seen it once, like just, you know, the way you, like at one point he picks up adrenaline.
Right,
you know,
picks up adrenaline.
Guns are lying on the ground. You pick up a gun, and you know,
and
change
most
weapons.
of the time he's holding the gun like it's in frame exactly.
And he does the flip, the hand flip, which happens.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like this.
Is there like a flashing mound of gold coins or anything?
Almost.
And it's one of those things. Like it's tough to, you know, I thought a lot about how I would review this movie, and if I can get past the way it's shot, because you know, it's not just that it's all first-person perspective, but kind of the way the GoPro shooting kind of, you know, it's almost a fisheye lens. Like that, I think, made it a little bit worse.
Yes.
Than just being kind of like, you know, it's like that got that anamorphic quality to it, right? And I think that ups the level of kind of how much it messed with me to watch it. But past that, this movie, I think, successfully does exactly what it sets out to do, which is recreate the idea of playing a first-person shooter that is one of those over-the-top, very violent, very kind of extreme movies. Like as the game goes on, the levels get harder and harder, the missions get tougher and tougher, and you know there's there's missions where you have to go and kill this guy and get this thing, and then there's missions where you have to, the worst missions of all in games like this, where it's like, oh, you have to guard this thing while it's moving slowly, and you have to protect it. Like, those are the worst, and it happens in this movie, and it's okay. And then, there's the showdown to the boss fight, and then there's the boss fight that you think you beat, and then there's another boss fight. And so on that level, it nails it. Now, the trick is, can you sit through that on the big screen? It's tough.
It's really
but
tough.
you're going to give it a better number, and I was originally I was thinking of doubling the number that I have, like last night, because I gave it some thought too. I mean, you probably gave it more. But because I thought it was, wow, this is cool, this is inventive, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. But Christy said in the beginning that you go and you're sort of intrigued in that first, 18 minutes. But none of those questions are answered in any sort of story manner, in anything. But ultimately, it becomes just a game where you go from level to level to level to level, as opposed to what still could have happened, but with some story. You mentioned last night, like if there had been a real Russian mob there and you'd had to crack it, or why it had happened to you, or where these guys came from originally, other than creating an army of of serious unkillable killers. Except turns out they're all killable. But so none of that happened. There's no story at all. It's just, hey, you're at level 4, you're going to get to levels 5 and 6. And therefore, it becomes just watching someone play a video game.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's you want to get past the gimmick of the style of it. I think it's impossible to, because that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
And you never find out. Spoiler: you never find out who he is or how he ended up in that situation. The guy the albino with the telekinetic powers. You never find out really who he is or what he wants. I mean, I guess it does that. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's the MacGuffin. Maybe it's just a matter of the mayhem, and whether or not he has a diabolical plan is secondary.
Yeah, but you can't have a MacGuffin if there's no other thing that ultimately, you got to have something there. You can't.
The violence is the other thing. That's all it is.
Yeah,
right?
It was not. It became uninteresting, and they needed some sort of story there. And I thought they set up for what could have been a pretty cool story. I thought we were going to find something interesting, but then it just. That never happened.
Also, I'm going to do a thing that you guys think is a cliche that I do all the time. Can we talk about misogyny?
Yeah, sure.
Let's talk about misogyny, because every woman in this thing is either a Russian hooker or, the doctor may have ulterior motives. The beautiful blonde may not be as trustworthy as we think she is. So every woman in this thing is horrible or a whore.
So here's the credits were the best thing, and to that point, so a woman named Svetlana Kozlovsky.
Okay.
She played girl in brothel 29.
Wait, is that the 29th brothel or
girl in brothel number 29? The 29th girl in the brothel. Now, one other credit, not to your misogyny point, which we can get back to. An actor named Bruce Grant played Trey in the Head John in brothel, which is a nice credit to get dying with a tray split through your skull.
And they all look the same.
I thought Trey was his name.
And all the prostitutes look exactly the same. They're all topless with the same little black panties on and the same platinum blonde bob wigs.
Well, once you make the one model in the game, you're not going to do a bunch of them, right? Because you're not going to use that character. I mean, honestly, that's. You almost wonder if that was a conscious choice to make it feel more like a game.
Probably.
I'm sure. No, I think it was the same way that all the bad guys were bald Russians, and they sort of run at you, and then you.
In tracksuits.
And I don't even play in tracksuits, but as soon as I see that, I'm like, oh, that's obviously what happens in a game.
That's your Russian mob cliche.
Yeah. So. I don't know, but Svetlana Kozlovsky, she was girl in brothel 20, and that's by the way,
great,
some of the women in brothels had names. So I don't want you to think that there were only 29 hookers in the brothel.
Right.
The movie had many more.
Right. And we should mention really fast also Sharlto Copley. Kind of amusing here and there with the various personalities. I mean, one guy is like an Easy Rider kind of hippie. One guy is like a professor. One guy is a punker.
Right. One is the World War I era soldier.
One is dressed as the tree, the camo guy.
There's some kind of funny stuff with him.
But that bit wore off. It was funny a couple of times.
Yeah, it's almost like, are these the things that he would have done, extra things he would have done as Murdoch in another A-Team movie, right?
Right.
We'll never know.
Sadly. Okay, so what are your numbers, guys?
I gave 3.3, but I thought about giving it a 6.6.
I'm saying 4.
Yeah, I give it a 6. I think this movie sets out to be a video game, and it does that. And as far as video game stories go, it's okay. So, on its own merits, like,
is it better than the other video game movies for not actually being based on one, or does that not matter?
It is.
Or is it?
I think it is somewhat. It doesn't seem to be.
I don't think so.
It is better than a lot of other video. Look, it's a lot better than Super Mario Brothers, right? Yes, because it's not necessarily beholden to things, and it kind of tries to make it work. Like, as much as I couldn't handle the way it was shot, that is more about like probably my age and not being able. Look, I know people who are going to love this, and
they're a lot younger than we.
And
are.
they're under 25, right?
and Dave White was laughing the whole time.
True, but he was also looking at fixed points on the horizon.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that.
according to
Like,
what he told me.
I wonder what this would feel like watching it on a smaller screen.
On an iPad or
right?
something
Like,
like
if
that.
watching it on an iPad, I wonder if I would
Be better.
Be better.
Yeah.
Right? It's still like still have the same
Still
story
wouldn't-
problems.
yeah, it still
but
wouldn't.
it's a video game story, and at least for me, like I'm like, yeah, okay, it's a video game story. I'm not expecting anything out of this.
I think they hear
So-
what we're saying. Video games are stupid.
Right. I want.
So I give it a 6.
Where is the Pac-Man first-person game with GoPros? I'm waiting for that.
It's
All
a
right.
better video game movie than Pixels.
Again, you're really, this is the low hanging
I don't
fruit
know. That's a toss-up. Okay, so our average is a 4.4.
Right.
Where is it?
It is in the 60s on the tomato meter
It's
right
dropping. It played at South by Southwest, which is probably a perfect place for it. And
For those drunks.
yes.
I thought it was going to be way cooler. I thought it was going to be way cooler.
All right. So our average is a 4.4. Bye. See ya.